So, hello and welcome to our 7th podcast for Tapas and Pretzels. Hi, Tim. Hi, David.
Hi, Inga.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. No,
Good
good morning. No,
morning,
no,
yes.
bad.
Good morning.
Good morning. No, good morning.
Yes, let's hope we have a good morning here in Germany. It's a bit cold, I would say. I
Cold.
think it will
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the reason why I'm wearing a pullover, sweater here, a hoodie,
Yeah.
because I actually have a cold because it's so cold right now in Germany. We're recording this, by the way, in the end or mid of July. And it's so cold that I'm wearing a sweater and I have a cold. I'm sorry for my voice, but yeah, temperatures dropped. So
Really?
how's it in Spain, David?
Yes.
About 30, 35. Not too cold. Not too cold.
Yeah.
So, we can just start with our topic then, I would
Okay,
guess.
go on.
Go to the serious facts here. This is a serious podcast. So, Tim and David, I think the topic for today are data contracts. In my understanding of data contracts or API contracts, that is something like an agreement between, for example, two teams that would provide an access data, and to ensure just that every team knows exactly what is in the data, or to ensure even the stability, the data quality, and also the traceability in the data architecture. I don't know if that's correct. Maybe Tim, you can explain more. I think you also have a nice slide for us today. So
So today I'm trying to leverage the advantage of having a video podcast. So I want to share a slide about data contracts. But before I'm sharing it, let me say a few words before everyone is looking at the slide. So in general, I think data contracts is a really crucial element if you want to have a transparency in your enterprise about who is sharing data with whom, what is the data about, and usually those information is stored either in an API portal or in its so-called data catalog. I would say in an API world, it's like the protocol is defined. So you have the data is transferred by an API, and if you think about a data catalog, that's more generic purpose. So it's basically you have usually information objects or business objects or data objects. It depends on the terminology. But I would not try to expand the podcast here, but it helps you to get a general overview, and you can share these information objects with each other. And that's the general purpose. And it's not necessarily by API. It can be a stream, it can be a file, it can be a JDBC or any database direct connection. So that's my general thing. But before I'm taking all the time, David, let's share your point of view on it, and then I'm sharing the slide.
Okay, I take that. Yeah, I agree with you. Data contracts are key in the enterprise architecture structure, above all for integration. The concept in essence is quite similar to the API, in the sense that both of them are contract when you specify which information is going it's going on in the information exchange flow. So you specify there the format, and also in an API with runtime policies or security policies, you can give permissions from some stakeholders to access the data or not. In that sense, they are quite similar. Yeah, it's also important the traceability of the access to the information, which is something that you can also have in an API, in the API world. Not directly in the API per se, because API it's only a text file with the specification. But once you have you have set up the API in the API platform, the API gateway has the means to offer you that kind of features, controlling the access to API, not only security. You can also add transformations policies or cache policies or whatever runtime policies you want to put in place.
Yeah, absolutely. To clarify it even more, let me share my screen.
Mhm.
I hope you can see right now my screen. And
Yeah.
Yes.
okay, perfect. So what I have created here is a little generic data contracting process, just to give you an understanding what it's meant for, what is it about. So that really the outer box, the white frame is the data catalog usually. So the whole process usually takes place inside the data catalog, but sometimes it also can be done in other processing systems. We have some task management systems or workflow management systems, but that's completely in your freedom of choice. But on the left side, we see the data consumer part. On the right side, we see the data provider part. And so how it works usually is somebody in the company or outside the company, depending on what area you are. So you have a consumer that is looking inside of a catalog usually
Mhm.
for some data. So you would like to get access to this specific data object because it has all the relevant information. It's described in the catalog. Maybe he sees some attributes with the quality, what is the metadata, what is the information about, and also what is the security level of those information. And then he can basically say, okay, this is the data I would like to consume, and he can raise a request for the data. Usually it's done in the catalog. And then depending on the severity of the information you would like to consume and the security, his own data officer, usually there's some sort of hierarchy in data management organizations. The data officer of his department usually has to get a notification and he approves that this data is really relevant for the use case. So this approved request will then be processed through the data, will be generate a frame, a contract frame. So this is a draft of a contract, and those requests for a contract will be received from the data owner of the providing site. So he then checks the request and okay, he wants to use that data for a certain amount of time for the use case, and it's probably also it's fine in his point of view, and then he can approving the request, and then you have at least in the catalog that both parties have agreed it makes logical sense. And in a later step, the data officers again have to sign formally the contract. uh, because why is that later? Because usually signing contracts, even so are digital contracts, they involve some hierarchy or permission for the role, and therefore you have the data officer as a role that is allowed to sign contracts in the name of the company, the department, and so on. And then you have basically a data contract, and that's a document where it says a consumer wants to consume the data for this use case A for a certain amount of time. Provider B accepts it under certain circumstances, and then they have the data contract. And then usually what happens afterwards automatically is like the data provisioning or the access provisioning. So then the consumer gets an API key, a database connection, a dedicated view, or anything else. And this is in general the process works. And the beauty of it, if you imagine if you would do all the data processing inside those catalog, you automatically will get the data transparency. Where is the data flowing? For which use case is the data used? How long will it be used? What are the go-to persons for either the consumer or the producer side? And this is in general data contracting. So now I've talked a lot, and I would like to hear your thoughts about it, David.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. If you want, what we can do is to make a parallel with the API world. But the flow is sorry is mostly the same, where you put the data contracts, the data contracts, the API contracts will be hosted at the API management platform. The data catalog will also part of the API portal, the developer portal, in a kind of store where you can discover the available APIs to make use of them. The process of approval, the approval process can also be implemented in the API platform. I think that the main difference is that the APIs are more focused on REST HTTP protocols rather than in data contracts you have a broader variety of protocols that can be used. Of course, also in APIs. APIs are not only REST APIs. We have GraphQL, Async APIs, and so on. At a lower level, I think that's the difference.
And no one stops you to integrate a catalog with an API platform because
Of course.
Yeah. Signing the contract with the platform will create a contract in the data catalog itself, and then you have a nice integration.
Yeah, you can create an API that gives you access to this stuff.
Yeah.
So also, as you can see, also for the data contracts, there are also a lot of people that are used to, for example, the data consumer, data officer, data owner. So I think the people are also important to provide that.
Yeah, but in an API platform, you can also define those roles, or you can expose you can have this part of approval process implemented as a backend services, and then expose that backend services as an API.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one crucial thing is like never underestimate that you need roles once you're starting an API or data governance program. It's one thing is like to set up a tool like a data catalog or an API platform, but you have to think about these processes. And this is a quite simple process that is quite generic, and you will have multiple deviations for several like security levels of the data itself, and then also defining or identifying or establishing those roles within a company that has not done this roles before is a really time-consuming job. You have to workers' councils, legal aspects, and so on. Like, therefore, I'm usually saying like it's all about people, processes, and tools, and that my acronym for that is PowerPoint, PPT, so people, process, tools. So I call myself a PowerPoint architect, and it's really never underestimate like how complex it will be, especially when you're from the technical side, like how complex it will be to set up those roles and the right permissions with it, and to establish those roles within a company, because we need to get the people hired, to enabled and trained and on board. That takes quite almost as long as setting up the platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you very much, David, and also Tim, for the quite nice slide, I would say, to have this data contract processing as a picture. And we will see to the next podcast, to the 8th podcast, and you will be surprised which topic it's gonna be. So
You still don't know.
That was something I didn't wanted to say, but I mean, okay. So thank you guys, and we will see us to the next podcast.
Thank you, Inga. Thank you, David.
See you see you in next Tim and David show.
Yes.
Bye.